Okay. Let me know when you guys can actually see my screen.
Not yet. Okay, coming up. Yes.
Okay, great. Let me, I think, you've done the introduction part. I'll just keep it very brief. So I'm Karthik Devasigamani. I'm chief architect at Noon Academy, and I'm trying to help Noon build a social learning platform. And prior to this, I've been here for about 3-4 months now. And prior to this, I was with Walmart Labs, both in US as well as in Bangalore, and I was leading their retail graph initiative, which was about building a product knowledge graph. And prior to that, I was working at Yahoo and small startups building content recommendation and ad recommendation systems. So that's very briefly about me. And I'm really excited about this conference, and I'm really looking forward to sharing what I have learned, and also learn from, and looking forward to really learning a few things from all of you here. So in this session, we'll actually talk about the evolution of EdTech itself, and then the problem statement that we are trying to sort of go after and solve. And then I'll introduce the concept knowledge graph and the social learning graph that we are trying to build to solve these problems, and the use cases that we are trying to sort of address, and some of the challenges that we are running into, in our efforts to build a knowledge graph. Okay. So when you really look back, right, the excuse me, we've always attempted to take the concept of learning outside the boundaries of school campus, college campus, and universities, right? We've used postal as a medium to be able to deliver content, and this was basically distance learning, and there are a lot of universities that have been offering this for a long period of time, right? But with the with technology picking up in the late 90s in the form of people having access to computers at home, personal computers at home, things started changing a bit, right? The term e-learning was first introduced in the year 99 with respect to computer-based training programs, right? So, and at that time, it was all about being able to take a file, or any sort of learning content, right, on a storage device like CD or floppy, and being able to sort of deliver content using that storage medium, right? And people would actually pay for this content at that time. And then slowly, as we turned into the next decade, the first half of the decade saw the boom of learning management systems, which was all about helping people organize their course content, and doing all these assessments, managing the schedule of teachers at universities. But again, this was sort of confined to some schools and colleges and universities, right? And towards the later half of that decade is where the e-learning platforms started mushrooming, right? The first one, the most popular one, was Khan Academy, right? They introduced this concept of MOOC, which basically stands for Massive Open Content, online courses, right? So these kind of platforms were offering certifications, making content free, which was not the case, some time back. And the next generation of the e-learning, sort of the next wave in the e-learning was around tablets and mobiles, right? With that, what basically happened was people started moving from one device for a household to one device per individuals. So everyone had access to a tablet. Every student had an access to a tablet or a mobile device, and they all had access to social media, which basically means you can now learn about anything that's actually available on the internet, right? Content started becoming more free, and there was an explosion of content, right? This was in the first half of this decade, right? And as we started moving more towards the end of this decade, there was a lot of focus on adaptive personalized learning, right? By adaptive personalized learning, what I mean is everyone has different paces of learning, right? And with cloud and ML becoming and big data becoming mainstream, a lot of companies started, providing adaptive learning as a solution, and a lot of these apps were focused on providing tailored one-on-one instructions, powered by AI to sort of give that tailored experience to students, right? But then when COVID happened, everything changed upside down. All that the EdTech, the industry, the e-learning or EdTech industry was doing over the years was delivering content from to a specific person, right? It was all about one-on-one learning, and nobody really focused on sort of like a social learning where you sort of simulate what you go through in a classroom, right? So that is where the world sort of woke up to this reality of COVID, realizing that learning is not just about one-on-one; it's actually a group activity, right? And at Noon, we've been trying to sort of solve this problem, way before, because our problem statement has always been to build this open social learning platform, and I'll explain what that means and how this ties back to knowledge graph, right? So by open, what we mean is, any sort of content is actually, any sort of content is available. When I say content, think of it as course and learning materials. And then anybody can actually come into this platform and be able to sort of sign up and register yourself as a student or a teacher and be able to teach them, right? And then the social learning aspect, right, where the learning is not really one-on-one. It's actually happening in a collaborative environment where you are actually learning with your peers, right, with your friends. So this becomes super important, right? And this is where you need to sort of have this need to be able to engage with the student, the teachers being able to engage with them, right? And in an online class, where the numbers could go really high, one tutor to say 50 students or 100 students or 500 students, it's very hard to provide individual attention. And that's where, making this fun and interactive becomes super important, right? And the third aspect is about the platform, which provides all the teaching aids, right? So if I really break this problem, right, there are three things that actually come out, right? One is discovery problem, where there is a need for students to be able to go and find the right content, find the right students, and then the right friends to be able to sort of learn from. And the second one is around engaging them, right? Okay, so that brings us to the two problems that we really want to talk about, which is around discovery and engagement, right? And when you look at this, right, there are three core pillars to EdTech. One is student, other one is the teacher, and the third one is about the content, right? So this Venn diagram, this is basically from a research that was actually done by a few folks. It was published as a paper called "Where Student, Teacher, and Content Meet." So what these guys have actually identified is that the best student engagement happens when the students have a good relationship with the teachers, and the content being shared is actually super relevant, and the teacher who is handling the content is super competent on teaching that, but using that content, right? So this is where you actually get the sweet spot of best student engagement when it comes to learning. And we wanted to sort of take these three pillars of e-learning, student, teacher, and content, and be able to bring these three elements together, right? And this is where we found that we have to sort of leverage the power of a knowledge graph, and also be able to build a layer on top, which we call as the social learning graph. Yeah. So so here, what excuse me. So here, what I'm going to be talking about here is a concept knowledge graph that we plan. We are some of this is manually being built while we are trying to sort of bring in much more advanced ML into, in play. So let me explain what this concept knowledge graph is, right? So the concept knowledge graph captures the relationship between instructional concepts and then the topics, right? Instructional concepts are basically, academic concepts that are taught in classes, right? Think of examples like, photosynthesis, Pythagoras theorem, right? So a concept knowledge graph basically attempts to capture the relationship between these concepts, right? And what are these relationships, right? What do these relationships actually imply, right? So let me explain that with an example here, right? Geometry is a topic here, and when you look at the concepts under it, there is angles and shapes, and if somebody was to sort of go and learn about Pythagoras theorem, right? You want him to basically be able to understand a few things before even he can get there. It's a prerequisite to learn Pythagoras theorem is you need to know what a right angle triangle is, and you need to and in order to know what a right angle triangle is, you need to know what a triangle is, and you need to know what right angle is, you need to know what angle is, and you need to know what shapes are, right? So with all these fundamentals covered, then you can actually get into this actual task of learning Pythagoras theorem. And having a knowledge graph like this allows you to build an adaptive learning platform, right? So you can actually start from a certain concept and then sort of go backwards to see what are the prerequisites and be able to sort of generate a bite-sized content for it. So the way we are building this is by looking at topic of contents in textbooks and a lot of other material that is available on our own platform, and then be able to sort of build this graph. So we are using native graph databases like we've narrowed down on dgraph. But we've sort of moved away from these NoSQL graph databases to native graph database. And the data model that we are narrowed down is LPG. We're going to be using label property graph to be able to represent this data. Once this is built, right, once the concept graph is built, then we want to actually be able to take the other two elements of e-learning, which is basically the students and then the teachers, and be able to layer that on top of this. By that, what I mean is the social learning graph basically connects all the interactions between teachers, concepts, and then teachers and students, and then the relationship between the students themselves, right? So in an example here, right, see, Marie Curie, Nikola Tesla, Isaac Newton, they're all have taught this particular concept of Pythagoras theorem, right? And Isaac Newton here has actually taught two kids, James and Andrew, in the past. Now, if Peter is actually friends with James, then when Peter wants to learn Pythagoras theorem, even though you have all these three teachers who have taught the same subject, you want to be able to show Isaac Newton to him, because there is a much better likelihood that he will be able to connect with this teacher than the other two. So this is sort of the this is where the the learning graph laid on top of the concept knowledge graph unlocks a lot of business potential for us. So the idea is that the relationship between the teacher and then the concepts, it'll capture the competence score for that particular teacher. So the number of times he has taught this particular concepts, how the students who have actually learned this concept from him have performed in tests, right? All of that is sort of factored into that competence score on this edge right here. And then the student to student affinity score is basically a function of the number of interactions that these kids have actually had on our platform, their learning styles, and what school they go to, and all that kind of stuff, right? And then the last one around the teacher and student relationship captures the affinity score between them based on factors like how many sessions has this student attended of this particular teacher, and what are the interactions between them on our platform, right? So that's about the social learning graph. And and with this, right, with the knowledge graph and the social learning graph on top of this, how are we going to address these problems? What are some of the use cases, right, that we are able to tackle? The use cases are primarily around, discovery, both explicit discovery and implicit like search and personalization or recommendations, right? So when students get on the platform, they type in a search term, we can quickly go and understand what concept it maps to, and be able to pull out the relevant content and the best teachers who have actually taught that. So that is where we plan to sort of leverage this, right, on the discovery side. Then it comes to adaptive learning, right? Adaptive learning is one of the big things in EdTech right now, where people can actually create on-demand content, which is sort of adapted to individual's learning style. Whether the kid is able to pick up things faster or slower, the system is able to automatically adjust the content based on that. So the way this works is you throw in a concept, just like how I explained the Pythagoras theorem example, right? If somebody wants to learn that, if the person knows what a right angle triangle is, you don't have to start from the beginning. So you just explain what that is and then move further again, right? But if he doesn't know what a right angle triangle is, you try to go far back in the graph and find all those previous concepts, and then explain that and ask them questions to make sure that they've actually got this, right? And then the challenges that they actually face, that we faced while we attempted to build this in-house. Excuse me. Actually, I missed out the social learning part. The social learning angle is, this is the place where we try to leverage all the interactions that happen on the platform, right? Breakout. So we have this concept of breakouts, where in a live session where the teacher is teaching, say, about 500 students, right? We can actually break students into smaller groups and then give them a problem, and then they can actually, talk to their peers in that group, solve the problem, come back to the larger class and share the results and learnings, right? So this here, the idea is that once you understand how students interpret these concepts and how well they understand these concepts, you can actually pair in and form different study groups, right? Utilizing the skill sets they have. And this also helps us with peer-to-peer learning, identifying who is good in a certain concept and being able to use that person to teach it to some other student in the class. So that's where this is super helpful for us. Lastly, coming to the challenges that we face, right? Entity extraction on this content has been a huge problem for us, because the content format itself is so different. There is text, audio, PDF, images, all kinds of content format. It becomes extremely hard to be able to go and mine and extract those entities, right? And you can't use OpenNLP or Stanford NLP for these kind of operations, because none of these guys can actually understand the instructional concepts that we're talking about. So we'll have to train them in-house. The second problem that we have is the relationship, right? The entity linking part, where the relationship itself is very implicit and subjective, right? Where you could always argue that whether this is the right prerequisite for a certain concept or not, right? In some cases, it's very clear. Like for instance, in in science and maths, we found that this to be relatively straightforward compared to some of the other subjects, right? And disambiguating is another big hard problem for us in this space. So the other big challenge that we always have faced, even at Walmart when I was working on the retail graph, is should we rebuild this every single time, or should I build this incrementally, right? This has always been a problem, and we've never been able to crack it, even at Walmart and here as well. So the approach here has always been just go and just build it every single time for now, and then we'll have to we sort of punted that problem for later, saying incremental, not at the time being, because we are able to sort of rebuild it in a reasonable amount of time. So so that's all I actually had I'm open to questions at this point. Yeah, not sure how I'm doing on time though.
Thanks, Karthik.
Okay.
It's a little bit over time, but it's okay.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No problem. So does that mean the reminder is not prominent enough in the
Yeah,
chat?
because I'm actually looking at my other screen, Keynote, and
Okay.
it was very hard for me to know. I couldn't see the messages actually.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can use a verbal reminder for
Yeah,
next
that'll be
next
helpful
presenter.
actually.
Okay.
Yeah, because I couldn't see any of you guys because I was actually on the Keynote screen and I really couldn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. All right.
Stop.
So
We have time. Do we have time for questions?
yes, we do.
So
Go ahead, Mike.
I have two, Karthik.
Yes, Mike.
One of them is how you defining prerequisites.
Yeah,
So
like I said,
just up front,
yes.
we have a similar problem at LinkedIn, and because there's LinkedIn Learning, and we would like to be able to order things in this way, and I haven't found a good definition of prerequisite that we can leverage.
Yeah. So the way the definition that we have come up with internally for a prerequisite is that if in again, this is very, very empirical at this point, may not, I don't know whether it'll apply to you, but if in majority of the textbooks that explain this concept, if B comes before A in majority of these textbooks in the table of contents, that is the sort of the deal, that sort of defines the prerequisite for us.
Got
because
it.
it becomes super subjective, Mike.
Yeah.
Some teachers
It is.
argue one way. Some teachers basically say, no, this is sort of black box. Kids don't have to know this to learn this. So,
Right.
so we go by textbooks, topic of contents. That sounds like a reasonable source of truth for us.
Yeah. That's a really practical way of approaching it. I think that it will work okay. The other question I have for you is about learner modeling. So you're modeling the network and you're modeling the content.
Yeah.
I hear you talking a lot about the learner and the learner's competence, how good they are, and using and doing adaptive learning. All of this requires a learner model, but you didn't talk much about that. Are you thinking of leveraging knowledge graphs for that as well?
So we haven't really built that part yet. We're trying to. So like I said, right, we are very, very early in this phase. We are sort of focusing on the concept graph at this point.
Yeah.
And then we are trying to because building the adaptive learning is sort of like a long-term goal for us. That's not the core. What do you say? That's not in our goals for the next say 6 months or so.
Right.
Because there are a lot of organizations, startups that are focusing on just adaptive learning, and we are sort of differentiating ourselves by saying we are social learning platform.
Social growth. Yes.
Yeah. So we are sort of focusing more on that aspect, not really on the learner's model, right? We're not focused on that. But what we are really interested in, though, Mike, is capturing the interactions between two learners. Because our platform allows for a lot of interaction. So you could actually chat with friends when the class is going on. You could actually send emojis to your friends. You could send emojis to the teacher saying, I've understood this concept or not. So capturing this interaction and being able to link the right learners with each other is what we are looking to solve.
Right. So you're talking about the right learners, and I'm thinking of defining right learners in terms of their competence and their ability to learn all these things.
So we're not focusing on the second part. Yeah. We're not focusing on the second part. We are not yet. Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
One question, Karthik.
Yeah.
First of all, really nice presentation. Thank you. I'm wondering, social learning in this kind of setup, right? The key challenge might be we need to balance, right? We don't want the course to be too hard or too easy, right? How do you envision, using technology to strike a good balance?
Oh, great question. And this is the problem that we are trying to solve. Because if you really look at it, right, I'll try to give you the business perspective before I go into the tech perspective here, right? From a business model perspective, it makes sense to scale a teacher because you can actually take one of those high demand teachers from, think of it like some of these premier colleges or universities, and being able to scale them to say thousands of students right, in one class, and at the same time maintain the kind of interactions between the teacher and student, and then the classroom environment, if you can crack that, nothing like it, because online is all about scaling, right? It's all about scaling online. And so a teacher who can physically teach 500 students, if you can make him teach, 5,000 students, you've won this game. So it is a super hard problem, and we are iteratively experimenting on a lot of different ideas to see how we can actually scale this model. And that is where building the social learning graph really comes in very, very handy for us, to be able to find the right students, put them in the right bucket, so that even in a 5,000, because we had sessions where there were 5,000 students in a particular class. So
Wow.
it's easier for students to get lost, right? So how do you
Yes.
make sure that they feel that they belong there, right? Otherwise, it becomes like watching a YouTube video. So how do you give them a sense of belonging, right? So we have a lot of interactive stuff that people can do inside that session. Make sure that you are actually connected. I can go into more details later, but yeah, just pause here.
Got it. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, I actually have a quick one. So Karthik, it looks like the key step in constructing the concept knowledge graph is to extract the concept. So what I can imagine is, if you have the course syllabus or the textbook, the table of content will be the first step.
Yes. That is absolutely right. That is where we are right now.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Any plan?
Are you leveraging dictionaries for that? Dictionary definitions?
Not at this point.
It sounds like
Mike.
it might help. It sounds like it might help for you.
So we do have this concept of flashcards and things that teachers have actually prepared. It's actually image at this point. You could run a simple library Tesseract or something to do OCR and be able to sort of extract those definitions at this point. So table of contents in textbooks, and then the flashcards that teachers have created. These are the two things that we are going after right now.
Okay, flashcards. So I guess then the entity disambiguation will be a little challenge for you.
Absolutely. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to build tools so that our ops and teachers can actually go in and disambiguate it for us, and then see how we can use it to learn and do it via models at a later point. So right now we have a bigger operation teams than our data science team. So a lot of the process that we are putting in right now is to collect data, which we can use for training models at a later point. So. So very early stages, and I've been here for about 3.5, 4 months. So just getting started. So yeah, very interesting times.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Thank you. I think it's time to move on to our next speaker. So